Hi, this is Amy.
And Melissa. We are a couple of retired Texas teachers who are CALTs, Certified Academic Language Therapists. We started our own businesses, and now we have a podcast called The Dyslexia Duo.
So join us for our informative podcast, where we'll delve into dyslexia, covering the topics that affect parents, therapists, teachers, practitioners, and anyone who wants to learn more. We'll guide you through everything you need to know, from the first signs to the intricacies of dyslexia curriculum placement and beyond.
This season, we will cover the referral process, what to expect when your child or student is dyslexic, the generational impacts of dyslexia, and how to support those affected.
Come join us. Let's resume our conversation with the insights of Mary McFarlin.
So when we had Sue Hegland on, she shared how beneficial morphology instruction is to spelling development as well. And we've talked a little bit about that throughout this podcast. What are some ways that you have found that are most effective when using a multisensory approach to developing spelling congruently with morphology?
Right. A couple of things. One of them we already kind of talked about was noticing those affixes and circling those. That could be a pop of color or a circle. I use plastic protectors over all my materials, so that way we can write on them. And I also think just that interactive mode, like I do, and I would love to find some research on this, but one of the best spelling activities I find are these word chains. And I do spoken and spelling. So we do, there's one morpheme change within each word. And then when they go to spell it, they are so empowered because they start with whatever the word is. Like, say we have the word concept or whatever. And then you're going to have them change it to conception. And often there will be a pronunciation shift. Sometimes we need to point that out. But again, C-O-N-C is con or con, and kids learn that really easily. All right. Yeah. So then they just make that one change, right? And then I might say, change it to misconception. So they add the MIS. And that is so kids like it. And they're just like, whoa, I can spell these words. Because it's kind of taken that, it's fun for them because they get to use a whiteboard. So that would be, I would consider that multisensory in the fact that it's engaging. They get to use the whiteboard. They're erasing. That's a really great one. Another one that I was thinking of is, well, this is what I learned when I was trained, is actually in Wired for Reading. We learned the signs that were associated with the sense of meanings of the morphemes. And that kids like it. It's actual sign language. And that is, for me, it was really putting it into my body and helping me with a memory strategy.
Okay.
That's not necessarily going to help you with spelling, but it's going to help you kind of remember that prefix or suffix. Mm-hmm. And I think doing those word sums and doing games, often I make my spelling activities into games for students. And you were asking more about like from a multisensory.
Yes.
Is that what you're thinking? What I also do is I involve my students, not when I teach suffixes. Suffixes are their own, those need to be very explicitly taught with a lot of pronunciation practice and a lot of spelling practice. But with our prefixes and our base elements, the ones I teach, those most common ones, I actually involve the student in discovering it. I think that engages them. So I will say, let's just use like re, right? So we're gonna learn the prefix re today. How do you spell re? And by then, and they're easy. They're like, yeah, that's easy. That's my point. It's easy, right? Like they know it. Mm-hmm. Then I ask them, can you think of any words with re? And they'll start naming words. Some kids don't. They're not so great at drawing out those words, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. But most of the time they'll be like, oh, redo or whatever. And then it's that point. In certain ones, they'll already guess. They'll be, oh, that means again, right? But then on the next page, we highlight the re in the words. They read the words, and at that point, it's like, so how does that affect the meaning? How does that prefix affect the meaning of these words? And then there's that aspect of discovery. If they don't know the word, or if they can't figure out the sense of meaning, no big deal. We talk about it. But that is that engagement. It's getting them involved in it, and it's showing them. And like even the base elements, most of them are really straightforward for spelling. Once they know there's no K in Latin, they can spell dict and struct and ject and attract, right? They can spell those no problem. So it's kind of getting them like hooked in where, oh, this is not so hard. And then after that, I follow with the word sums. So they break apart words, they build words, and then we do other activities. And I like to incorporate it because these kids, in order for these units to come orthographically mapped, they need a lot of practice. And again, I'm an interventionist. I'm gonna, it could take a long time. So that built-in practice. Yeah, and I do teach online, so the multisensory is a little different. There, it's more about it's about more the engagement aspect.
Right.
I consider part of that, right? And the multimodal, they're hearing it, they're spelling it, then they're seeing it, right?
Right. That's a great response. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm gonna go a little off the questions. Euphony. You have prefixes like m, n, il, they're all the same basic meaning. But, the way I try to explain it to the kids, I go, it looks better. It sounds better. Is that the best definition I can give to students about why a prefix might change its spelling?
So I do use more kid-friendly language. So instead of assimilated prefixes, I will refer to them chameleon prefixes. And we always start with like in the real world, what's the point of a chameleon, right? What do they do? Like why, they say, oh, they change colors. Is it just to be pretty or is there a reason? And some of them will say it's so they blend in, right? It's like, oh, well, that's just like our prefixes. And that's kind of from the Wired for Reading training I had. It's really, really kid-friendly. And it is based on speech. I think sometimes it matches up with the letter. And I think we do need to teach them because it explains a lot of times why we double that consonant.
Right.
Like I still use it. Like spell the word accommodation, right? Like in the old days, I probably was like, oh, so two C's, right? Now it's like, there's my prefix AC. There's my prefix CON. There's my base element mode, but I got to drop that E, right? So it's like super important to teach. So I just say it has to do with speech. And you could have them say context, right? Context. Now say the word coexist, right? Coexist. Now say conexist. My mouth doesn't like that, right? So I have them try it without the chameleon. And then there's tricks like co is in front of like a vowel or an H. There's a further explanation, but I think for kids' purposes, they need to know it's for efficiency of speech. That's all I say. I mean, there is a much more linguistics-based definition. And back to the multisensory, the one thing I should have mentioned is when you're introducing things such as these chameleon prefixes, I like to do word sorts. If you're in person, you're going to have them on a little card. They pull down the correct one. Online, I have it all. It's all digital slides. So they pull down the correct, okay, they see rut. CON, COM, COR, COL. Which one is it? And they're able to figure out, oh, it's corrupt.
Yeah.
So
what do you do in the case of, I'm going off script again. What do you do when you have kids that are, because we do sorts with parts, with morphological pieces, and I'll have kids make, because they want all the points with the game, and they bring in all of it, and they read the word, and I'll say, well, I don't think that's a word. And they go, no, but it means, and they're right, because they're using all the morphology. How, I mean, I like it. I like that they're thinking. I like that they're thinking about the meaning, but how can we support them in their understanding of, because I don't want them to go out in public and say a wrong word.
Right. And I think I work this year, all my students are one-on-one. So there's not really that sense of like, oh, I'm going to have the most words, like they're not like feeling they have to like win so much, but I do point out, well, let's think, is that a word? And, let's do some words that we're pretty sure of. And again, this is part of the reason that my materials are recommended for grades 4 and up, because these are words that a younger student would not necessarily understand. Because I see what you're saying. So they're saying so implicit, is that holding in, like they're trying to make meaning, but
that's a word that's not really a word.
They're trying to do it for a word that's not a word.
Right.
And I think what's more important is that we're actually teaching vocabulary and real accurate spelling. So they know we need to do a real world, but you need to be gentle about it, because you don't want kids to feel ridiculous. And a lot of times they really do think it's a word. Like
Yeah.
they're not trying to be funny. And a lot of times it's with the suffix. Like they're maybe, using a word incorrect, that syntax piece.
Yeah.
They're not
Yeah.
even using the word, like, you're not going to say contently, right?
Right. Like that.
That kind of thing. So I just use it as a learning opportunity. But again, I'm one-on-one, so it's all about the discussion. So
No, and I love that they can define it. That's one of my favorite things is our little dyslexic kids, they're great at oral speech and they will filibuster with me about, why this should be a word if it's not a word, because this is the meaning behind it,
right,
I like
right,
the question.
right. Yeah, and sometimes it is really clear, right? Like there are some where it's a very clear meaning, but otherwise, I think we need to watch out for kids trying to literally apply the sense of meaning to each part and instead really use it in real sentences. Like this is really how we use the word. So it's kind of a tricky dance to be supportive and not critical, but we want to learn real words. We want to learn how to spell real words and use them correctly, syntactically.
Awesome.
So then how does morphology affect academic language in secondary education?
Well, I definitely, as we talked about statistics earlier, the most of these words by far in academic texts do contain these elements. And again, I think in a classroom setting, teachers using like structured word inquiry or something similar to what, the possum, but for older learners, and use specific vocabulary from their content is great. The ones that I do and the ones I include in my materials are those ones from that Coxhead list. And these are considered high utility words that are used across the content areas. That's why they're called high mileage, because you could encounter them in any. So I feel there's value in learning those. But of course, as we know, vocabulary needs repetition. So it's not just a matter of studying it one day. Somehow we want to incorporate that back into our lessons. I think you have to, they said you have to have like 14 or 16 meaningful interactions with a word before you really are able to use it. And probably even more for a lot of our students that we work with. So you want to be conscientious about revisiting. And then when it comes to science, I think for secondary learning, that Greek layer is extremely beneficial. And kids love it. I don't do the Greek level with a lot of my students because by then they're doing so well, their parents just kind of pull them out, they're done. But the kids that have done it, they love it. And I hope to add a Greek layer to my products that I sell. So,
I can see the huge benefit. I never had a hard time with reading, but I did have a hard time learning vocabulary words. And the way that they did it was, looking back on it, I'm like, why did they think that was effective? They would just give us a list of words, tell us to study them. Right. And they might have had a book that we were reading to go along with it. But we're talking about high school kids. Like how many high school kids were really applying those skills? Sure, there were some. There were, reading the text and going back and figuring out what the word mean, whatever. But I had a really hard time, spitting those out for a quiz. Yeah. So I think that it's so paramount that the kids in these upper grade levels learn these skills to be able to develop their vocabulary in a much easier way so that they don't have to feel like they're flailing in class to be able to put out their product that they're supposed to put out, but also so that they can develop their writing instruction and develop their writing ability.
Yes. Too. Yes. And not just cramming for a test. And also I think that's back to the word family piece. If you're learning these words, let's learn them in the family. And at the high school level, it's perfect because the words get really, really complex because you could have a word in a family that has, 4 suffixes, right? And I think then using, like you said, with the writing, can they appropriately use these words within a sentence? Apply, because as we know, the suffixes change the part of speech. And so again, it's that application piece is so important. And you're right. I'm sure many places still don't teach it that way. It was like cramming for a test, or it might be a word that's not even really relevant to anything. Whereas I feel at least these tier 2 vocabulary words, they are relevant because they're words we're going to encounter our whole life. So,
right. Not so much Shakespeare words where,
Right.
it's wonderful poetry and wonderful what he did,
Right.
but it's
Right.
not words that we use in our day-to-day vocabulary vernacular.
Right. To remember a definition of that is not going to be what's the value of it? Like always like, yeah, what's our end goal?
I think that was probably like, for me, I don't know so much about Melissa and Mary, but for me, when you were learning words, you got and that spelling list, but vocab, we had vocab tests on Fridays also. You got the list of words, you had to look them up in the dictionary, you had to use it in a sentence, and then you had a matching test or a multiple choice test. But how often did I use those words? Not too often. But I will say I was good at vocabulary because I get these vocabulary things and now in my email and it says, what's the meaning of this word? I'm like, I think it's this. And I'm taking apart the words. And it makes me wish I did take Latin in high school. They did offer Latin when I was in high school and I didn't take it because I said, I'm not going to be a doctor. Why would I do this? But I wish I had. That would have made a lot more sense. Thinking a little bit, I heard you mention structured word inquiry. How does that relate? Can you explain to our audience how that relates to morphology instruction?
Well, it certainly is, morphology instruction. And Pete Bowers is definitely one of or he probably is. I think he invented it, right?
He did. Okay.
Right? Yeah, I believe he coined the phrase. And that's, I think in particular in the school setting, it's fantastic because it is like we talked about vocabulary. You can specifically choose your words and you can look at the sums. And after that exposure to those prefixes and suffixes, they're going to be seeing those over and over again. And they're going to be doing the word sums. And in terms of an intervention, though, I would say it's part of what I do. I think the difference is I teach specific lessons around the individual morphemes. Right. And there it's looking at the words, looking at the history of the words, and then, kind of word analysis, right? They're analyzing the word and then they're taking it apart. But I think there's, I'm not a classroom teacher. So I think though I think it's great. And I think it's taken off. And I think that is huge. And the spelling, how this is going to help our kids spell to be doing structured word inquiry in the classroom is huge. And it's also, you can start it early. Your matrices are going to be just, shorter words, right? So it's a lot more. You can fine tune it because you can choose any words you want and spend as much time on it as you want.
Yeah.
And I think having them up on the wall when I was in the classroom, I would put word matrices of the base elements I was teaching up on the wall. And that was really helpful. And I even put a picture representing the sense of meaning. And later, I remember a kid telling me how helpful that was.
Oh, really?
That visual. So I think these teachers that are doing these morpheme walls with the word matrices and the word sums, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think great, and like you said, different than anything we had, I think, when we were young.
Yeah, no, it was just rote memorization when I was growing up.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Hi, this is Melissa with Kids First Dyslexia Services. I am excited to share with you my private practice. Kids First Dyslexia Services is a private practice that specializes in dyslexia therapy. Each one-on-one session focuses on instruction specific to your child's needs in a nurturing environment that develops self-esteem, builds confidence, and fosters a sense of accomplishment, resulting in happier kids with higher levels of achievement. We provide a professional, personalized experience, always putting the child first. We value the relationships with both our students and parents because strengthening skills and overcoming hurdles to achieve desired goals and success is a team effort. For more information, please visit www.kidsfirstdyslexia.com. That is www.kidsfirstdyslexia.com.
Hi, this is Amy Rodenroth, and as part of the Dyslexia Duo podcast team and owner of Discovery Dyslexia Services, I want to talk to you about my business. Our COUT-trained team offers expert virtual or in-person therapy located in Prosper, Texas, using proven dyslexia curricula like Take Flight, Build, MTA, Alphabetic Phonics, and Reading by Design. We also provide crucial independent evaluations and advocacy services. Don't wait. Empower your child today. Visit www.discoveread.com to learn more. That again is www.discoveread.com. Discoveread, covering all your dyslexia needs. Let's return to the show. Okay, so in the dyslexia world, a lot of us, we're dyslexia therapists, but a lot of us are working from a curriculum. And so the kids progress through the curriculum and then they finish the curriculum. Every kid performs differently in a curriculum, right? But I'm thinking about my secondary kids who, they finish the curriculum. There's nothing new to introduce. They really just need help in maybe vocabulary, morphology, spelling, written expression. So could that be a good, as therapists, as dyslexia therapists anyway, bringing in that structured word inquiry as another piece when they finish with the formal dyslexia curricula?
Sure. And I mean, it's what I do with my students after we're done with a typical phonics progression.
Yeah.
If you looked at your typical one, the one that I use, it kind of ends with that consonant LE syllable. And they've had some morphology. Now that I know better, I'm definitely bringing that in earlier on. And then once we're done with that, I do my morphology materials. And with some students, that's all I do. I do think students need writing though. So sometimes I'll incorporate, my writing, but you could use the same words in the writing, right? Like you could kind of, overlap them. I think structured word inquiry, I think it's appropriate all through high school. In an intervention setting though, I'm not sure, how would you choose which words to work on? I guess that would be my question, which is why for me, I have chosen to do 50 to 60 of our most common Latin-based morphemes. And then, of course, structured word inquiry is part of that, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense.
Because you want to have that syntax piece in there. So when you are analyzing these words and spelling them and reading them, we want to put them into connected text. We want to talk about parts of speech and syntax and word families. There's just so much you can do with these words, including the word sums and the matrices. And I think it's good to have students make their own. I think that's really important too, produce their own.
And they have that connection when you basically lead the horse to water and they do it, they'll have more of a connection with what they're doing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, for sure, any kid that's not super adept at reading those multisyllabic words, we want those kids to read those automatically, right? So any kid like that, even though they've been through their progression, it's still going to benefit them. And it's just fun for them to realize how much easier spelling is when you get to this layer of language.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Why not let them experience that?
I think you're right.
So what kind of data do you have personally? I love data. I love looking at my progress with my students. What kind of data do you typically see, fluency wise, accuracy wise, spelling? Do you have anything that you really want to share with us about that?
Yeah, so I use a lot of different resources in my work. And when I do a lot of my morphology work with my students, I also use some of the material from Anita Archer, the rewards material. And I had a student last year, he started in November or something in 2023 and October, November, late in the school, after school started. And he needed spelling. So I went through a very quick spelling progression of kind of an OG progression, but I did it really more quickly than I normally would because he was in fourth grade. I wanted to get him up to this other level. And he had a parent at home that was working with him. That's key. The mom was practicing with him. The grandma was practicing with him. And he ended up, he started then rewards and my morphology materials. And so a year later, mom and dad kind of pulled him. And this was a kid that really, really, really was struggling. And I just thought that was a super neat progression that he made. But again, because I was using multiple materials, A lot of them are materials I make myself. I don't use a specific program anymore. I use my own, but it was just really, really encouraging to see how quickly he was able to do the multisyllabic reading and spelling. I mean, I think that's really what it came down to. Like, that's our goal, right? Like Marianne Wolf said, like, the more you know about a word, the more fluent you'll be, and to be able to do that deep reading that we want our students to do. And I saw that with this kid. And because sometimes, like in the past, I mean, I worked with kids, and there's nothing wrong with this, for 3-4 years, right? It's a long process. So I think getting them to that multisyllabic level with the morphology as soon as we can for these older learners who are already in 4th grade is great. So I don't have specific numbers though
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Like, but it was just one he sticks out in my mind as someone who, had I not done that progression, it would have been a lot longer of a road. And again, his parents were helping, and that's critical. That was
Well, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot per se. I am looking and racking my brain trying to decide, okay, what would I do for a baseline assessment? What would I do to assess when I start working with some of this morphology instruction? What would I do to kind of assess how this is progressing? So I just wondered if you had something in particular that you do.
I get asked a lot about assessment, and there isn't much out there. I had heard there was one coming out. I should probably revisit that and go look and see. What I do, though, typically is the spelling inventories that probably a lot of us use. And that'll clearly tell me, like, is this at the morphological level, right? Is this student not, and often you'll see it, like they'll know all their, and they'll know some of their inflectional suffixes, they'll know the doubling. And then they get to like the Latin-based words, and it's just like, SHUN, and right? It's like, clearly that's a real indicator of what they need. But I wish there was more of a progress monitoring. And then like the San Diego quick test is a real easy one to give, to see how they're reading in these, the multisyllabic layer. So I kind of, those are two that are quick and easy to give. But monitoring wise, there's not a lot out there. But I do think even if a student can read pretty well, I still think we want to look for, are they using the words correctly within sentences? Are they understanding the syntax piece? Are they reading inaccurately, right? When they might think they're a great reader and they're scoring okay, but again, you have them read aloud and they're dropping their suffixes, or they're, mixing up words because they're not reading accurately. So there's a real lack of, I think, assessment. And so if you know of any, let me know. I do get asked that quite a bit.
Okay. And Dr. Hasbrook also said accuracy equals fluency. I mean, she said it much more eloquently and beautifully. I don't have her quote right in front of me, but she had indicated that you have to be accurate before you can be fluent.
Exactly. Yeah, I was at Big Sky 2 years ago, and one of the presenters from Readsters was presenting on their rereading for accuracy, and you're not even looking at the rate, right? You're looking at that accuracy. And that really stuck with me. And they said most of the time the fluency will follow. And I find that to be true. I do think a lot of kids, it's a bad habit. They just get a habit. They get in a habit of reading inaccurately. And I warn them, I kind of joke, I'm like, I'm going to be really irritating. I'm going to point at your ear, So I think they're so used to it. I almost turn it into like a joke, like, oh, I'm going to be annoying. But I think it's important. And I'm glad to hear that Jan said that too, because I agree. So
That's funny. Okay. Wait, you've been talking about you work from your own curriculum. Is this a published curriculum?
Yes, we have the Morphology kit. It's actually our website, the Morphology kit. And it's been a great year. We only started it about a little over a year ago, January of 2024. And it's been great. It's been well received. And our whole goal is that teachers, without a lot of training, it's ready to go. It's digital slides, interactive digital slides. It's printables. And I also get asked about trainings. I haven't had the time and the I haven't done one yet. But again, if you go to our website or the Facebook group, there's so much out there, or read Sue Heglin's book. I mean, that is like, start with that and, you're good to go. Our goal was to be very, very user-friendly and affordable, because I know what it's like as a private practitioner, what I had to spend on my materials. And so it's been great. So that's our endeavor that my husband and I started.
I think that's amazing.
And I do use it every day with many students.
So you've recommended, so we were going to look at your kit for sure, because I could use that in my setting. And you recommended Sue Heglin's book. And we had Sue on here not too long ago.
Yeah, no, I listened. I loved listening to Sue. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, she's amazing.
It was fun meeting her in Dallas. Yeah.
I don't think we met her. Did we meet her?
We did not get to meet her.
Yeah.
There, but we're going to try to meet her.
She was just there as a guest. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like being IDA. We were joking. It's like being at the Oscars for people.
Yes.
That was so funny. Yeah. It's well, and that was so fun what you were doing. Like, what a great idea.
Yeah. Our producer had that idea, and I was like, "You're crazy. That's not going to work." And he goes, "Just think about it for a minute."
And you guys live there too, right? So
we're not real far. Yeah. I think I incorrectly told Corinne Weaver the other day that IDA was in Fort Worth. It was in Dallas, but I was thinking.
But we are doing Alta in Fort Worth.
Yes, Alta is in Fort Worth. Are you able to go to Alta?
Oh, I would love to. We definitely are going to be at the IDA one. I heard the theme is morphology. I don't know if that's true, but yeah. And then there's another conference I've been asked to present at. So it kind of depends on our budget. We live all the way in Seattle, so I would love to go to everything. I think being in person and meeting people is so important.
Yeah, no, it really is good to get your face and because there's so many people that I've listened to in my past that now doing the podcast, I was like, I was really struck by this person. I would love to have this person come on. So it's super.
Right.
Who is somebody that inspires you in doing all these morphology things, all the things?
Yeah, well, I would say early on, other than the original training I did with Wired for Reading, I think Pete Bowers was one of the first people that I was kind of studying because it was all kind of, I mean, obviously we knew about morphology, but the concept of studying it like this was new.
Right.
And I was going to go to his in-person class, but then in Vancouver, but then it was April 2020. So as you can imagine, canceled. So I ended up not being able to actually meet him in person. But I really enjoy William Van Cleve. I did get to take some of his classes before he passed away. And I do have some of his things posted on the Morphology Teachers Hub. He just had a gift. So those would be probably the two early on. And then, of course, I already mentioned Sue Hegland. And I also belong to, you've probably heard of it, the Spell Talk group. Yeah. Jan
We just had Jan Wasowitz on. She's coming
out. You did? Oh,
yeah, her episode comes out Saturday. Yeah.
Oh, I did. Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, I didn't see that on your list. Oh, good. So she, and I got to go listen to her at the conference. She has that Spell Talk group, and it's fascinating to watch some of those. I mean, it's like going down the battle.
It's like a front row seat. You see somebody's name pop up, you go, "Oh my gosh!"
I know. I have to go in today. I saw it was like Ken Apple.
Pete Bowers was on there.
I didn't have time to write. I didn't have time to read it. But what's that?
Pete Bowers was on there either yesterday or today. I saw him respond to something. I was like, hey.
Yeah. He's so good about interacting. I think that's great. And there's just so much out there. I mean, Lynn Stone has some great trainings. And Patton, Pattan, the Pennsylvania, they've got some great, like they're free. Like you just go on and the person, her name's the person in charge of that. She's in the Morphology Teachers Hub as well. She's so great about sharing resources. Can't remember her name, but
no.
Anyhow, she's the Patton, Pattan. They have resources. There's just so much, and I'm like, man, I wish this stuff was around 20 years ago.
Right.
I know. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Okay, Melissa, you ready?
Oh, I'm ready for my magical question. If you had one wish that you could grant for our students, what would it be and why?
I think I would wish for all of our students, everyone, including those kids with dyslexia, that my wish would be that they can fluently and accurately read and spell words that have 7 or 8 syllables. That would be my wish. I think that would be, and I think they can. I mean, that's the thing. They can. So
Mm-hmm.
if,
I think so.
if given the support and instruction.
That's a wonderful wish.
Yeah, I think so too.
I love to hear everyone's wishes.
Right.
That's Melissa's question, and people are always like, "What a thoughtful question!" Like, yes, that's our gal, Melissa.
I love it. I love that. So awesome. Well, you guys have the best podcast. It's so great. I'm so glad to have discovered it. And I didn't know it was video, so now I know. I only listen to it on Spotify.
Yeah, no, this is
Thank
the
you.
whole YouTube channel is kind of a new thing for us. So, yeah.
We'll see how this goes, Amy.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. So awesome.
My goodness, thank you so much.
Oh, thanks,
This
you
is
guys.
fun.
Podcast
Yeah,
with us.
I could go on and on and on. I hope I didn't
No, you're
ramble too
good.
much, but
You're
great.
good.
Well,
It was
wonderful to see you guys again. And I'm sure we'll see each other in person at a conference at some point for sure.
Yes.
Absolutely. So this is Amy,
And Melissa.
and we're the
Dyslexia Duo.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
The Dyslexia Duo podcast hosts are Amy Rodenroth.
Melissa Dean.
Our producer is Greg Rodenroth.
You can find us on Facebook at The Dyslexia Duo.
Email us any questions or comments at thedyslexiaduo@gmail.com.
Awareness is so important. Share this podcast with your friends
Family,
and teachers.
thanks for joining us.
Bye.